The execution chamber fell silent except for the steady hum of the energy shields. Commander Zix-9 of the Terran Dominion Fleet watched through the reinforced viewing portal as 60,000 beings knelt in perfect rows across the massive arena floor. Men, women, children, all citizens of the mining colony of Kepler 442b, who had dared to resist the Galactic Empire's new taxation laws, broadcasting across all frequencies. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Cass from her control station, "the entire galaxy will witness what happens to those who defy Imperial will." Zix-9 nodded with satisfaction. The gray-scaled Vorthan had climbed through Imperial ranks by understanding one simple truth: fear was the most effective tool of control. These humans and their alien allies on Kepler 442b had refused to surrender 70% of their mining profits to the Empire. They would serve as an example. "Begin the execution sequence," he commanded, the energy beams fired simultaneously. 60,000 lives ended in seconds. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the broadcast with horror and renewed fear of Imperial power. On a small backwater planet called Earth, in a place called Montana, former Marine Scout Sniper Staff Sergeant Jake Morrison sat in his cabin watching the news feed on his old tablet. His weathered hands gripped the device until his knuckles turned white. At 52, Jake had seen enough war in Afghanistan and Syria to last 10 lifetimes. He'd retired to the mountains hoping never to see such senseless killing again, but this was different. This was murder on a scale that made human wars look like playground fights. 60,000, he whispered to himself, watching the bodies fall. Among them, he recognized the face of Dr. Sarah Chun, a mining engineer who had visited Earth just 6 months ago. She'd spoken at the University of Montana about sustainable mining techniques. Jake had attended the lecture. Sarah had 3 children, now she was dead, along with her family and 59,000 others, because they had refused to be slaves. Earth had been under Imperial protection for 5 years now. The arrangement was simple. Earth provided raw materials and agricultural products, and the Empire left humanity alone. Most humans accepted this deal. They had little choice. Imperial technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth possessed, but Jake had never accepted it. Every fiber of his being rebelled against the idea of submission to alien overlords. He'd kept his mouth shut only because he understood that individual resistance was pointless. The Empire's ships could turn Earth into space dust with a single volley, watching the massacre on Kepler 442 be changed. Everything. Jake set down his tablet and walked to his gun safe. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, lay his most prized possession, a custom-built .338 Lapua Magnum rifle. He'd carried variations of this weapon through 2 deployments. With it, he'd made shots that his instructors said were impossible. His longest confirmed kill was 2,847 meters in the mountains of Afghanistan. "Impossible is just another word for untested," he said, repeating the motto that had guided him through 20 years of military service. Jake spent the next 3 days researching everything available about Imperial fleet movements and command structure. The Empire's strength lay in their advanced technology and massive numbers. But Jake had learned long ago that every system had weaknesses. The Imperial forces operated under strict hierarchy. Field commanders like Zix-9 had almost unlimited authority in their sectors, but they reported directly to High Command on the capital world of Varix Prime. More importantly, Imperial doctrine emphasized overwhelming force and technological superiority. They didn't expect resistance from primitive species like humanity. That was their first mistake. Jake's analysis revealed that Imperial security protocols focused on preventing large-scale rebellions and technological threats. They screened for energy weapons, explosives, and communication arrays. They didn't screen for kinetic projectiles fired from chemical-propelled firearms. Why would they? No, civilized species had used such primitive weapons in over 1,000 years. Their second mistake: the Empire maintained a garrison on Luna, Earth's moon. From there, they coordinated Earth's resource extraction and monitored planetary communications. The garrison commander was Subadmiral Kex, a pompous Vorthan who had bragged publicly about his role in pacifying 12 systems. Jake's target had been chosen. He began preparing immediately. The plan was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. Jake would infiltrate the lunar garrison and eliminate Kex. The act itself wouldn't harm the Empire. But the message would be clear: humanity would not stand by while tyrants committed genocide. Jake contacted his old unit through encrypted military channels. Word spread quietly through networks of veterans, intelligence operatives, and resistance sympathizers. Within a week, Jake had assembled a small team of specialists. Maria Santos, former CIA operative, handled intelligence and logistics. At 35, Maria spoke 7 languages and had spent 10 years running assets in hostile territory. She believed passionately in justice and had lost family members to Imperial mining accidents. Tommy Tech Nguyen, former Navy SEAL and cyber warfare specialist. Tommy could hack anything with a processor. More importantly, he'd been designing countermeasures for Imperial technology in his garage for 3 years. Colonel James Iron Patterson, RETIRED Air Force at 61. Iron commanded respect from every military veteran on Earth. He would coordinate ground support and provide strategic oversight. Dr. Elizabeth Warren, not the politician but a physicist who had been secretly studying captured Imperial technology. She understood their sensors, their shields, and their weaknesses better than anyone else on Earth. The team met in Jake's cabin on a cold February morning. Snow fell steadily outside as Jake outlined the mission. "They think we're insects," he said, spreading intelligence photos across his kitchen table. "Barely sentient creatures who should be grateful for their protection. They've studied our weapons, our technology, our military doctrine, but they haven't studied us." Maria leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Human stubbornness. Our refusal to quit when any rational being would surrender. They've read about it in historical reports, but they've never experienced it firsthand." Tommy grinned. "You want to give them a demonstration?" "I want to remind them that we're not just another conquered species," Jake replied. "I want them to understand that there are lines they cannot cross without consequences." Dr. Warren had spent weeks analyzing Imperial security protocols. "Their lunar base has 3 defensive layers," she explained. "First, an energy shield that deflects incoming projectiles and energy beams. Second, automated defense turrets that track and eliminate threats. Third, personal armor and shields worn by all personnel." "Sounds impenetrable," Iron observed. "It would be against Imperial technology," Warren agreed. "But their shields are designed to deflect energy attacks and high-velocity metal projectiles. Jake's rifle fires bullets at 914 meters per second. That's fast for human technology, but barely above walking speed compared to Imperial standards. The shields might not recognize such a slow projectile as a threat," Maria realized. "Exactly. And their armor is designed to disperse energy attacks. A large, slow-moving lead bullet might pass right through like it's not even there." Tommy was already running calculations on his laptop. "Lunar gravity is 1/6 of Earth normal. That changes your ballistic calculations completely." Jake nodded. "I've been practicing. Had to build a vacuum chamber to simulate lunar conditions. The math is different, but physics is physics." "How do we get you close enough for a shot?" Iron asked. "We don't," Jake said. "I get myself close enough." Maria spread out lunar maps. "Imperial transport runs cargo from Earth to Luna twice weekly. Security is light because who would be crazy enough to attack an Imperial convoy?" "Someone with nothing left to lose," Jake said quietly. The plan took shape over the following days. Tommy would hack Earth shipping databases and create a false cargo manifest. Jake would hide inside a standard shipping container filled with mining equipment. Maria would ensure the container reached the right transport. Dr. Warren would provide technical countermeasures. For Imperial scanners, Iron would remain on Earth to coordinate communications and emergency extraction. If Jake succeeded, the Empire would likely retaliate against Earth. Iron would work with underground resistance cells to minimize civilian casualties. "This is suicide." Ion told Jake privately before the mission launch. Maybe, Jake agreed. But doing nothing is guaranteed failure. At least this way, we make them bleed. The night before departure, Jake sat in his cabin cleaning his rifle one final time. Each component was perfect, each measurement precise. He'd replaced every moving part with hand-machined alternatives designed to function in lunar, vacuum, and extreme cold. Maria knocked on his door. Transport leaves in 6 hours. I'm ready? She studied his face in the lamplight. Why are you really doing this, Jake? There are easier ways to fight the Empire. Jake was quiet for a long moment. I watched my grandfather die when I was 12. He was a World War II veteran, fought at Normandy. On his deathbed, he grabbed my hand and said something I've never forgotten. What did he say? He said that evil wins when good men do nothing. He said that sometimes one person has to stand up and say, no more, even if it costs them everything. Jake met her eyes. 60,000 pay. Transport 7 Alpha touched down on Luna's primary cargo platform with a gentle thud that Jake felt through the container walls. He had been cramped in darkness for 18 hours, breathing recycled oxygen and listening to the hum of Imperial engines. Now came the dangerous part. Through his concealed audio pickups, Jake heard the mechanical sounds of cargo unloading. Imperial drones moved his container along with dozens of others toward the storage facilities. According to Dr. Warren's intelligence, containers would be sorted and placed in temporary storage for up to 72 hours before processing. Jake waited 4 hours after landing, before carefully activating Tommy's scanner-defeating device. The small box created a localized field that would make his container appear empty to Imperial sensors for exactly 6 minutes. Enough time to escape, but not long enough to trigger security protocols that monitored for equipment malfunctions. He pressed the hidden release panel. The container's false wall slid open silently, revealing Luna's cargo bay. Jake squeezed through the opening with his rifle case and immediately moved to the predetermined hiding spot. Behind a stack of industrial air recyclers, the lunar base was larger than he'd expected. Through the transparent aluminum viewing ports, Jake could see the main complex stretching across the lunar surface like a metallic city. Dome-shaped buildings connected by enclosed walkways housed approximately 3,000 Imperial personnel. Jake activated his communication device. Base, this is Hunter. I'm on target. Ion's voice crackled through the encrypted channel from Earth. Copy, Hunter. Drone reconnaissance confirms target location. Sub-Admiral Kex is in Command Tower 7, 3rd level. Distance from my position? 2,300 meters. Elevated position with clear line of sight once you reach the observation deck. Jake studied the target through his scope. Command Tower 7 rose above the surrounding buildings like a steel needle. Through the tower's panoramic windows, he could see figures moving about in what appeared to be a command center. I need to get closer. Too many variables at this range in lunar gravity. Negative, Hunter, Maria's voice cut in. Imperial patrols are rotating every 30 minutes. Your window is now or not at all. Jake understood. The shipping manifest showed his container would be inspected in 3 hours. If he wasn't back by then, his absence would be discovered. The mission would be blown, and any chance of sending a message to the Empire would disappear. He assembled his rifle with practiced precision. The weapon had been designed specifically for this mission, Dr. Warren had replaced several components with materials that wouldn't register on Imperial scanners. The scope used passive light gathering instead of electronic enhancement. Even the bullets were non-standard, pure lead cores wrapped in copper jacketing, designed to defeat energy shields through primitive kinetic force. Jake calculated wind speed and direction, though Luna's thin atmosphere made such factors almost negligible. He adjusted for lunar gravity and the reduced air resistance. Most importantly, he aimed not just at where Sub-Admiral Kex was standing, but where he would be standing when the bullet arrived. Through his scope, Jake watched his target. Sub-Admiral Kex was a typical Vorthan, tall, thin, gray-scaled, with the arrogant bearing common to Imperial officers. He stood near the command center's main view screen, gesturing animatedly at subordinates while reviewing some kind of tactical display. Jake's breathing slowed to the rhythm. He'd learned in sniper school. His heart rate dropped. The world narrowed to the small circle visible through his scope. Everything else ceased to exist. At this range, in lunar gravity, the bullet would take 4.7 seconds to reach its target. Jake had to time the shot perfectly. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked against his shoulder with surprising force in the reduced gravity. Jake immediately began breaking down his weapon while tracking the bullet's flight through his scope. Sub-Admiral Kex continued his animated discussion for exactly 4.7 seconds. Then his head snapped backward and he collapsed to the command center floor. Purple blood splattered across the view screen behind him. For a moment, the command center erupted in chaos. Imperial officers dove for cover, activated personal shields, and began scanning for threats. Security alarms blared across the lunar base. Jake was already moving. He stuffed the disassembled rifle into his pack and retraced his path toward the cargo bay. Imperial security forces would flood the area within minutes, but they would be searching for energy weapons, bombs, and infiltration devices. They wouldn't be looking for a primitive human with an ancient, kinetic weapon. He reached his container just as the 6-minute window expired. The scanner-defeating device shut down automatically, and the container once again appeared to contain mining equipment. Jake squeezed through the false wall and sealed it behind him. 30 seconds later, Imperial security teams swept through the cargo bay. They found nothing unusual from his hiding place. Jake listened to the security communications through Tommy's listening devices. The Imperials were completely baffled. Their sensors detected no energy weapon discharge, no explosive residue, no evidence of advanced technology anywhere in the area. Impossible, one security officer reported. Sub-Admiral Kex was killed by a kinetic projectile, but our shields should have deflected any Imperial weapon. Could it have been friendly fire? Another asked. No, the projectile came from outside the tower. Someone fired from long range. That's impossible. No species in this system possesses the technology for such a shot. Jake smiled grimly in his hiding place. They were right, of course. No species in their system possessed the technology. But humanity wasn't really part of their system, was it? They were just the latest conquered civilization. Useful for resources, but hardly worth studying. Another mistake. Over the following hours, Jake listened as Imperial forces turned the lunar base upside down searching for the assassin. They interrogated personnel, scanned every surface for weapon traces, and analyzed the bullet fragment retrieved from the command center. The analysis results baffled them further. The bullet was composed of lead and copper, materials so primitive that Imperial computers had to access historical databases to identify them. The weapon that fired it used chemical propellant, a technology abandoned by civilized species over a millennium ago. Could one of the human workers have done this? A security officer wondered. Impossible, his commander replied. We've analyzed human weapons capabilities. Their most advanced firearms cannot achieve the accuracy required for this shot. Besides, all human personnel are accounted for. That was true. Jake wasn't officially on Luna, according to Imperial records. He didn't exist. Commander Zix-9 arrived on Luna 6 hours after the assassination. Jake watched through the cargo bay windows as the Imperial dreadnought settled into lunar orbit like a predator claiming territory. Shuttles ferried security personnel down to the base in waves. CYX-9's investigation was thorough and brutal. He interrogated every human worker on the base personally. When that produced no results, he ordered mass arrests among Earth's leadership. Maria's intelligence networks reported that Imperial forces had detained over 200 humans suspected of terrorist sympathies. This is escalating beyond our projections, Ian reported during Jake's next communication window. They're talking about orbital bombardment if the assassin isn't found within 48 hours. Jake felt the familiar weight of command decisions settling on his shoulders. In Afghanistan, every choice had carried life-and-death consequences. Luna was no different, except the stakes were now measured in millions of lives instead of hundreds. I'm coming out, he decided. Negative, Iron responded immediately. That defeats the entire purpose. The purpose was to send a message. I think they got it. The purpose was to show them that humanity won't tolerate genocide. If you surrender now, you're just proving that humans fold under pressure. Jake was quiet for a long moment, considering his options. Iron was right. Surrendering would accomplish nothing except confirming Imperial assumptions about human weakness. What do you recommend? Complete the mission, Maria's voice cut in. One dead sub-admiral isn't enough to make them change their behavior. They need to understand that this was just the beginning. Tommy's voice joined the discussion. I've been monitoring Imperial communications. They're bringing in their best investigators. They know someone on Luna killed Kex, and they're going to tear the base apart until they find the guilty party. How long before they discover Jake's hiding place? Iron asked. Unknown. But they're getting more systematic with each search. Eventually they'll scan every container. Dr. Warren provided the technical assessment. Jake's scanner defeating device has enough power for maybe 3 more uses. After that, any deep scan will reveal his presence. The decision was made for Jake when Imperial security forces announced new search protocols. Every container would be opened and physically inspected. The announcement came 12 hours before Jake's scheduled extraction aboard the next cargo transport. I need a new exit strategy, he told his team. Working on it, Maria replied. But options are limited. They've locked down all official transport. Jake spent the next 6 hours studying Luna base layouts and security protocols. The Imperials had made the classic mistake of assuming their enemy would use Imperial tactics. Commander Zix-9 stood in the war room of his dreadnought, studying reports that challenged everything he thought he knew about humans. The investigation into Sub-Admiral Kex's assassination had revealed disturbing facts about Earth's primitive inhabitants. Sir, Lieutenant Kess reported, our analysis of human military history has uncovered significant data. Explain. Kess activated the holographic display. Images of human warfare appeared in 3-dimensional detail. Humans have been conducting precision kinetic warfare for over 150 of their years. They call specialists in this field snipers. Some individuals have demonstrated accuracy over distances exceeding 3,500 meters using purely mechanical systems. Zix-9 studied the data with growing unease. How is this possible with their primitive technology? Human neural systems appear uniquely adapted for spatial calculation and long-range target acquisition. Their military training emphasizes what they term individual initiative rather than technological dependence. More disturbing information followed. Human military doctrine incorporated concepts like asymmetric warfare, where smaller forces used unconventional tactics to defeat larger, more technologically advanced enemies. They had developed strategies specifically designed to counter superior firepower through stealth, precision, and what they called fighting dirty. Sir, Kess continued, there's something else. We've detected unusual communication patterns across Earth's information networks. Coded transmissions between former military personnel. Rebellion? Zix-9 asked. Unknown, but the timing correlates with Sub-Admiral Kex's assassination. Zix-9 made a command decision that would prove catastrophic for Imperial forces. Double the security patrols. Implement martial law protocols across all human territories. I want every former human military member arrested and interrogated. Sir, that's approximately 22 million individuals across multiple continents. Then we better get started. The Imperial crackdown began at 0600 Earth Standard Time across every major city. Imperial security forces moved simultaneously to arrest anyone with military experience. The operation was massive, coordinated, and completely predicted by Iron Patterson and his network of resistance coordinators. In fact, they had been counting on it. Jake Morrison crouched in the lunar rocks, watching his oxygen gauge drop toward critical levels. The extraction window was still 18 hours away. Imperial shuttles continued their search, but their sensors remained focused on energy signatures and advanced technology. They weren't scanning for humans hiding in natural cave formations. His communication device crackled with an encrypted message from Earth. Hunter, this is base. Phase 2 is active? Repeat, Phase 2 is active. Jake smiled despite his dire circumstances. Phase 2 had been Iron's idea, developed during their planning sessions in Montana. If the Empire wanted to treat humanity as a conquered species, they would learn exactly what that meant. 20-2 million military veterans was an impressive number until you understood what it really represented. These weren't just soldiers. They were specialists in everything from explosive ordnance disposal to cyber warfare. They had been planning for this day since the Empire first arrived. Tommy Nguyen sat in his basement in Seattle, fingers dancing across multiple keyboards. Around him, dozens of monitors displayed Imperial communication networks, security systems, and logistics databases. The Empire's greatest weakness was their dependence on integrated computer systems. They had never encountered an enemy that understood their technology better than they did. "Package delivered," Tommy announced to his team of hackers scattered across the globe. "Imperial Security is now running our software updates." The updates were actually viruses designed to exploit Imperial system vulnerabilities that Tommy had discovered through years of patient analysis. The viruses would remain dormant until activated, then systematically disable Imperial sensors, communications, and defensive systems. Maria Santos coordinated resistance cells from a command bunker beneath Denver. Former Special Operations personnel from 12 nations had volunteered for what they called Operation Retribution. Each cell had specific targets: Imperial garrison commanders, supply depots, communication arrays, and government officials who collaborated with the Empire. "All teams report ready," Maria announced. "Waiting for your signal, Iron." Colonel Patterson sat in the Pentagon's abandoned sub-basement, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officers who had avoided Imperial arrest. General Rebecca Hayes, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Admiral Chun Wu, former Pacific Fleet commander. Air Marshal Sarah O'Brien, former RF Strategic Command. "Gentlemen, ladies," Iron began, "we have 18 hours to demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity doesn't accept genocide quietly." Our friend on Luna started this conversation. "Let's make sure the Empire understands our message." The signal went out across Earth's resistance networks at precisely 1200 hours. In major cities across 6 continents, former Special Operations soldiers emerged from hiding and struck Imperial targets simultaneously. In London, a team of former SAS operators destroyed the Imperial communication hub with precisely placed explosive charges. The Empire had shielded against energy weapons and Imperial explosives, but they hadn't considered that humans might use thermite and C4. In Moscow, Spetsnaz veterans infiltrated the Imperial Administrative Center and eliminated the garrison commander with poisoned vodka. The Vorthans' physiology made them susceptible to Earth toxins that wouldn't even cause humans mild discomfort. In Tokyo, former JSDF soldiers used suicide drones, primitive by Imperial standards but effective against unshielded targets, to destroy 3 Imperial shuttles on the ground. Similar operations unfolded in Berlin, Paris, Seoul, Tel Aviv, and dozens of smaller cities. Each strike was small, precisely targeted, and used technology that Imperial sensors dismissed as harmless. Commander Zix9 received the reports aboard his dreadnought with growing rage and disbelief. "How many installations have been attacked?" 47 confirmed strikes, sir. All using primitive weapons and tactics. Casualties? 233 Imperial personnel dead. 41 facilities destroyed or severely damaged. Zix9 studied the tactical displays with professional appreciation despite his anger. The strikes were coordinated across multiple time zones with military precision. Each attack had been planned to maximize damage while minimizing exposure to Imperial retaliation. "Sir," Lieutenant Kess reported, "we're also receiving reports of system failures across multiple command networks." "What kind of failures?" "Communication blackouts, sensor malfunctions, defensive system shutdowns." "It appears coordinated." Tommy's viruses had activated exactly on schedule. Across Earth, Imperial technology began failing in cascading waves. Communication networks went dark. Sensors reported false readings. Defensive systems switched to emergency protocols that human hackers had quietly modified over the past 5 years. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected SOURCE. Dr. Elizabeth Warren sat in her laboratory beneath MIT, surrounded by captured Imperial technology that she had been officially studying for peaceful purposes. Her real research focused on Imperial power systems and how to disrupt them. Beginning power grid infiltration, she announced to her team of physicists and engineers. Imperial technology depended on quantum power cores that generated enormous energy through controlled dimensional folding. The cores were heavily shielded and supposedly impossible to access without Imperial authorization codes. But Dr. Warren had discovered something fascinating. The core's quantum frequency signatures were susceptible to specific electromagnetic interference patterns. She activated the modified radio transmitters that her team had positioned around every major Imperial installation on Earth. The transmitters broadcast seemingly random static on frequencies that Imperial sensors dismissed as primitive human radio noise. The static was anything but random. Each signal was precisely calibrated to create quantum resonance in Imperial power cores. The effect was subtle at first, minor fluctuations that system diagnostics classified as normal variance. Then the resonance reached critical amplitude. Imperial installations across Earth began losing power in coordinated blackouts. Emergency power systems activated only to fail as backup cores succumbed to the same quantum interference. Within 6 hours, Imperial forces on Earth were reduced to whatever portable equipment they had carried during the initial arrests. Commander Zix-9 watched his tactical displays go dark one by one. The humans had somehow developed countermeasures for technology that was centuries beyond their supposed capabilities. "Sir," Lieutenant Kess reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's broadcasting on all frequencies." "Display it." The holographic screen activated, showing the face of an elderly human male in military uniform. Ian Patterson looked directly into the camera with the calm confidence of someone who had spent his career planning for impossible situations. "Commander Zix-9 of the Terran Dominion Fleet," Iron began. "My name is Colonel James Patterson, representing the Unified Earth Resistance Command. We believe you wanted to have a conversation about justice." Zix-9 stepped forward. "You are in violation of Imperial law. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be swift." Iron smiled. "We're not interested in surrendering, Commander. We're